If you're somebody who has grown up, let me say, in a poverty-stricken environment, you really want to get out of that. There's a lot of low self-esteem issues, a lot of low confidence, driven basically by the life that you've lived, right? And so sometimes you'll find that there are people that their circumstances force them to sort of choose wrong options, if I can say that,
Yeah.
or let me say choose corrupt ways of living
Yeah.
in order to get what they need, right? Okay, so I'm a medical laboratory scientist. And normally when people ask me what is that, I firstly I say I'm the doctor's brain.
Hmm.
Um, and then my explanation for that would be when you go to the doctor and then they collect a sample from you, like blood or bone marrow, they bring it to me and I'm the person that analyzes that. So that's my job. Yeah.
It's painful.
And it is honestly, and it's really funny how initially when I got into being in the lab, I always knew I wanted to help people, but I just didn't want, I wanted to be in the medical field,
Mm.
but I didn't want, um, let me say, the emotional torture of being like seeing patients in front of me. Because
Yeah.
every time I'd imagine a hospital, I'd just be like, someone comes and there's a hole in their head and I have to stay calm. I'm not that person. So I've always wanted to balance between being in the medical field, but also not directly interacting with patients. And the lab was honestly like, it was perfect for that.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, but also because of the environment. Initially, it's very funny that I'm saying initially, but yeah, when I was younger, I was more introverted.
Mhm.
So I wanted a workspace that really didn't need me talking to people. But as I've grown older, I love being around people.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the lab life.
See, so the cool thing I think about this is this sounds like it's still part of your life. Like it still was part of your life and it was still a dream,
Yeah.
as in like to, be in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're kind of trying to explore a new field that has been a part of you, but
Yeah.
may not have been at the forefront. So maybe tell us a little bit about when you first engaged with like the arts and what was it about that, you know, drove you to want to do it more?
Um, when I think about it, I literally go back to two things. Watching telenovelas on NBC with my whole family in the evenings, I think around 7 to 8 p.m. That's when I was much younger. Like everyone would have their separate lives, but when evenings came, we were together and we were there with all the drama. We were there. Young, old, we were there, we were connecting. So that was the first part. And then I think, I don't know, it was very, very exciting to me as to how with telenovelas, they're mostly Spanish.
Yeah.
And I would make it a point to learn. I knew the theme songs. I knew the words. I know that I was breaking the words there also, but I knew the words. And I just knew I wanted to either be in a telenovela or sing the telenovela theme song. But regardless, I wanted to be inside that box
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
And then secondly, or let me say the second example is watching Nollywood movies,
Mm.
African movies as we know them. What stood out for me was how just the lessons that I got to learn from them, just how to conduct, let me say, how to conduct yourself as a person. I would say also my sense of humor is very, very drawn from the movies that I watched, from Nollywood movies that I watched when I was younger.
Mm.
And also just the way they made me feel. It was very interesting how you could watch a film and it was a comedy, but there was always a message in it. And I would apply that message in my life some way, you know? And so for me, I just always felt like that's what I wanted to do. I
Man,
always wanted to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's like so many layers to the stuff you're saying. And it's exciting for me, honestly, to see somebody who's still young, still got a lot
Mhm.
of life to live, still got a lot to give, you know, to just decide in the middle of this, like, how do I make this happen? This
Yeah.
childhood dream that I have kind of put on hold a little bit, and letting it take not what we call a backseat, but a break. And I
Yeah.
focus on these other chapters. And now I want to try and get this chapter in my life. It takes a lot of courage to do that, because when we try and move, we always feel like, and we're told from young, you pick a career and you stay on that
Yeah.
path and you live a good life
Mhm.
and it's done.
Yeah.
But these are the things we put so many limitations on ourselves because of our upbringing. And I can't speak for people in the West, but in Africa, I've met so many young, talented African people who are scared. It's like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
No one's done that. No, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
Yeah. So no, thank you for that insights of where you are, what you kind of enjoy doing. You've spent the week with us, obviously doing this ABC, the prompting. You're the first champion to come on board. So even for me, this is a huge win because I was like, I need to start this membership thing, and you jumped right on it. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how you ended up coming on this before we unpack what your week's been like or what the first week has been like. So yeah, how did you like what made you sign up?
Ooh, I need to go to the very beginning. Okay, I need to go to the very beginning because okay, um, like it's like you said, with most people with let me say creative arts, they take a break. And then I guess these people like me who, like you also mentioned, um, you just give up because you're like, I can't do this.
Hmm.
It's not for me. I've seen it on TV and that's probably as good as it's gonna get. And let me say, finding myself here now in the ABC workshop honestly started it didn't start very positively. I literally thought I'd be in the lab all my life. That's what I thought. And then I found myself working at a place where I experienced a very, very hostile work environment. Like it was bad. It was so, so, so bad to a point where my mental health just plummeted completely. And there came a point where I had to leave. And I think after when my parents saw how bad it got, and I actually got to be honest with myself and say, listen, you're not as strong as you pretend to be. And also, is this what you really want to do? Not
Hmm.
because it's broken you in a way, but because you know for a fact that this person that you are right now is not who you really are.
Hmm.
I'm someone who's very resilient, but for some reason, it was just too easy to, I was giving up on myself too easy.
Hmm.
And it took me some time. Months later, I got a casting call online. And then I auditioned and I got the lead role for a stage play. The First Lady of Namibia has an Arts for Activism showcase that she has every year. And there you showcase either by singing or by acting, anything really, fashion, poetry. But it has to be a form of activism against gender based violence.
Hmm.
And so I was the lead actress on a stage play. And I remember literally being on stage that night. And for the first time since everything that I'd experienced, I felt like I felt alive again. I know it sounds cheesy, but in all honesty, I felt like, when you're in an ambulance and they have those and they go,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then you basically come back to life. That's how I felt. And I was like, wait, am I really, are we talking about this acting thing again? Are we re exploring this thing? And that's how I found myself in, let me say, film and wanting to be in the creative space again. But how I found myself here, let me say, with you, is I saw the casting call, the Alkebulan casting call.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wanted to act. And it was just going through that whole process, especially I was drawn to the Alkebulan WhatsApp group,
Yeah.
and also how you engaged with us, and how you turned every little mistake that we made interacting with each other as a learning moment. That stood out for me,
Okay.
because many times I've been in situations where someone makes a mistake and it's sort of a moment of chastisement, but for you was, listen, this is a moment for me to teach. It's a moment for me to spread positivity. And I realized this is the environment I want to be in. And for such a long time, I was praying for the opportunity to meet like-minded people, especially in the creative industry or in
Mm,
the creative space.
mm,
And so the Alkebulan WhatsApp group has been that for me. We recently partook in a competition. Sorry, I forgot to mention, when we took part
yeah.
in the Arts for Activism showcase, we didn't win.
Hmm.
That was 2023. We went back last year and this time we won. So, yay! We're part of the winners, particularly in the film category. And I co-wrote the script, and it was just, I think it was emotional,
Yeah.
mostly because I got to show my parents that I'm actually good at this thing. It may be unrealistic, but hey, I can do this thing. If you just give me a chance. And I remember going to my dad and being like, "We won!" And he goes, "Wait, you being serious? You won? You can actually do this thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I won. I'm won." And then they start pushing me into like starting my own production company and doing things for myself and building a team.
Well done.
And yeah, thank you. And one of my uncles, who's honestly a role model for me, he pulled me to the side days later and he said, he literally told me that I had a gift that he'd identified. And he encouraged me to get a mentor,
Mm,
somebody who could help me grow in the creative industry, somebody who has done it and who is doing it, somebody that I can learn from, just so I hone my craft basically, and actually learn how to make a success out of it in
mm,
Namibia, or let me say in Africa.
mm,
And honestly, I was shocked. I was shocked that someone actually saw me that way.
mm,
For me, I feel like that the film that we created was so simple. I loved it, but it was something simple. And the fact that my talent stood out for him in such a simple something I feel is so simple. It was honestly very humbling. It is very humbling. And it also made me realize you should never really underestimate yourself.
mm,
And
mm,
then I kept praying, like, where do I get a mentor? How do I go through this? Because different types of mentors, hey, it's somebody you can go to somebody and say, listen, I've created this, what do you think? But then I wanted somebody who was very on hand, like all hands on deck.
yeah.
Also, is sometimes you don't know the questions that you don't know what to ask when you're entering like uncharted territory, especially for yourself. You don't know that you don't know this,
Mm,
right? So it's very important for somebody to say, listen, look out for A, B, C, and D.
mm.
And then one day you just dropped the ABC workshop on the group. Yeah. And then I honestly just, for me, that was a sign. And I made sure I jumped on it immediately.
Man,
So
wow. So upon sharing your purpose, part of the ABC Purpose Week, you start to explore some of the things that you potentially want to do. And unlike a lot of creatives, you actually have a very clear idea of the places you want to impact. Do you mind sharing a little bit about, where you're from and why you want to impact that space?
I'm Namibian, and I'm from the mighty Zambezi region.
Mm,
So in Namibia, we always say this is how we look on the African continent. And I'm from the right here, this small area right here.
Mm,
That's the Zambezi region. And it's a very, very small tribe of people. For me, people that are very, very creative. But one thing that stands out about my people is I feel like they underestimate themselves a lot.
mm,
I grew up in the city, but one thing about my parents is they made sure that on when on weekdays, or let me say during school times, you're in the city, but during the holidays you were in the village, learning the language, learning basically how not to be a privileged brat, if I can say that.
mm,
Yeah. But one thing I got to see was how people in the village were very, very confident in themselves there, but they were very talented, but there were no opportunities.
mm,
Like it was so frustrating. You would meet somebody who could sing, but they just had no platform. Or you'd meet somebody who could write, and they just had nowhere to. They didn't even know they could publish a book. They didn't even know that they were writing a poem. They didn't. It was just them creating for fun. And then you come to the city, and people are actually making money off of this. They're actually making this a career. This is actually their life, you
yeah.
know. And for me, I've always wanted to just like I love my region. I love my people. I love Zambezi region. And I want to inspire the people that are that side.
Man.
Or let me say the people that are back home. I want to be that person that creates those platforms for them. I honestly believe that if you see, there's a reason why you see the gaps that you see.
Yeah.
All of us can look at a thing, the same thing, but we will see different things, right? And for me, if you identify a certain gap, it's your responsibility to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So for me, I really want to impact the film industry, to create more platforms for my people to participate in creating films, films that matter, films that make them feel represented. It's very important for me to impact music. I need to fulfill that young girl's dreams who was singing telenovelas in Spanish. Uh, but most importantly, I want to impact the music industry because music has been such a big, big, big it has been a big means of healing for me and self-discovery. I just something spiritual about music, and I it's something that has just it always calls me. I try to put it behind and just say, listen, you're not Beyonce, girl. But I've learned I've learned that I'm Gina and we're gonna make music as Gina. I'm not gonna try to be anybody else. And most importantly, because of my experience.
Man, shame. So it's gone again, but yeah, that's like very powerful for me because that was the big like that was with my beginnings as well, is seeing the gaps and seeing the that a lot of people where I'm from didn't have the space to actually become Hollywood stars. I'm from a place called Zimbabwe. I'm from Harare. And a lot of people actually in my age group were a little bit younger, a little bit older, have gone on and done some amazing things in Hollywood. You know, you got the Danais, you've got Pip, Dr. Chai, you got Bantu, you've got Prince Soko, you got so many individuals, including like Mark Tonderai, um, who have that heritage. And I'm also half Zambian, so we've got like the Sebastian Theos. We've got a bunch of people that have done some amazing things. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're back?
I'm back.
Yeah, yeah, no. So I'm just saying, like from our regions, that's something that's very common is when you're kind of grown up, you see the gaps because there's nothing for you to do. It's like I want to express myself, but where do I go? You
Yeah.
know? So yeah, like please carry on if you want to carry on with your train of thought.
Oh, yes. I was saying finally, the third industry I'd like to impact is the corporate space,
Yeah.
particularly as it relates to mental health within the workplace.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I honestly believe that that's an area that is very, very disregarded. And I got to see it immensely, especially after COVID.
Mm.
I don't know if you saw that there was a study that actually said that a lot of the people that are called empaths, and it's people that they basically feel other people's emotions.
Motions. Yeah.
Yes. And there was a study that was done, and they found that the empaths in the workplace struggled a lot because they found themselves carrying other people's emotional
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Package. Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
so it's that we really disregard mental health in the workplace. And mental health relates to the strengths, our individual strengths, our individual weaknesses, and how we need to how will I say, really invest firstly, or let me say, notice the strengths you have in your team
Hmm.
and then leverage on that, you know, creating a safe space for your employees, making sure that they're able to have a healthy work-life balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very important for me to impact those two areas.
Man, okay, so we're about to close up. But before we close off, there's a segment in Underrated Individuals that's called Underrated Ideas that we're putting together. And it's to do with environmental security. So
Okay.
things like climate change and stuff. You don't have to, know much about it, but what's your idea of environmental security? Like, what do you know about it? Like, if you were to describe it in your own words, what would that sound like? And what would you like to do about it if it is of concern?
That's a very deep question.
It's big.
Um, it's very deep, but I think environmental security has to do with how we secure the environments we live in.
Mm,
And for me, it has to do with, let me see, external and internal. There's
mm,
external environment, there's internal environment. And for me, I really, my focus has always been on the people. So I would say right now I'm discovering that I would say my claim to fame, people call it claim to fame, or my argument has always been, or the impact I want to make has been through film. So how will I say? Um, I'm struggling to just structure the answer in my head.
So this is the beautiful thing about this is what you've said there encapsulates your idea of what environmental security is if we do not like let's tie it into your purpose already, like the mental health segment, is if
Mhm.
we do not have the mental resilience to be able to then look externally because our internal is so broken, it becomes very hard to look after what's around you. It becomes very hard for us to care for those things and make sure that the commons, they would call it in economics, are tended to. So when we think about these things, like you already within, like you from the Zambezi region, which if you think about, that's like a whole river that could potentially not be there in the next I don't know how many years, or could be polluted to the extent where, so there's those type of elements. But you're so right that in your case, if I were to answer it on your behalf based on what you told me, it would be to focus on the internal. Like you want people to make sure that their inside is good so that they that can resonate and come to the outside. It's a beautiful um it's a beautiful metaphor for like what the Bible kind of encapsulates in terms of love is, it starts from within and then whatever is inside will show on the outside.
Yeah. Sorry if I can just say,
Yeah.
basically what you've done right now is a big demonstration of how the ABC canvas also works. Because I was stuck in my answer. But you've opened my mind now to what I was trying to say also. And then if I can give an example, let me say with the Zambezi region.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who has grown up, let me say, in a poverty-stricken environment, you really want to get out of that. There's a lot of low self-esteem issues, a lot of low confidence, driven basically by the life that you've lived, right? And so sometimes you'll find that there are people that their circumstances force them to sort of choose, let me say, choose wrong options, if I
Hmm.
can say that,
Yeah.
or let me say, choose corrupt ways of
Of
living
yeah.
in order to get what they need, right?
Yeah.
And if you're somebody who's, let me say, you're from the Zambezi region, you might find yourself entangled with a company that does not have the environment at heart,
Yeah.
but is willing to have you. pay you a lot of money for you to, let me say, trick your people into, let's say, selling the river. And you're going to do it because for you, people will think you're driven by money, but in actual fact, what you're trying to do is to never go back to poverty.
Yeah.
What has happened there is that the mental has been broken, right?
Yeah.
The mental impact of poverty was never addressed, and now you're living a life, let me say, you're living a immoral life as a result of, let me say, the
What's
poor mental health yes,
yeah, what's manifested within.
what's
Man,
manifested within, um
yeah.
and that impacts environmental security.
Nice.
So you see,
Nice. Nice. Well, we've got like 30 seconds before we end this call. And if you could say within one word, like one word, pick one word that describes your path from here going forward, what would that word be?
undeniably successful or inspirational.
Wow. Okay. She went for three.
See, summaries.
That's beautiful. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll have another call next week. Just, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and trust me, it's all coming. It's all coming.
Awesome. Awesome. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Leading with honesty, compassion, and genuine interest in people's lives and genuine interest in helping them get across the line is something that as a company we've put at the forefront. Underrated individuals is about the individual before it is about the company, and it's what we can do for you before it becomes what you can do for us. So it's just been a blessing to get to know her and to be able to help her take steps towards her dreams and help her paint that vision. I remember there's a quote that I'd heard in an interview. Somebody was talking to Oprah, or I think they were quoting Oprah, and they said they had asked her, "What is the difference between successful people and just everyday people?" And she said, "Successful people know where they're going, and that's vision. Once you know your vision, it's very hard for people to sidetrack you."